Part 8. The Quiet Invitation. Elizabeth didn't hesitate.
"Yes,"
she said, voice low and certain. It wasn't a dramatic yes. Not the kind you rehearse in your head or deliver like a scene from a film. It was the kind of yes that lives in your chest long before it reaches your lips. Bradley didn't smile right away. He looked at her, really looked, his eyes studying hers for any flicker of doubt. There was none. He nodded once, quietly, and opened the passenger door for her. She stepped in, the interior of his car softly lit, smelling faintly of cedar and leather. The seat warmed beneath her as the door clicked shut. Through the window, the city glowed in blurred gold and charcoal. They drove in near silence, not out of discomfort, but because neither of them wanted to interrupt the stillness that had bloomed between them. The kind that only shows up when something sacred is beginning to form. The streets moved slowly around them, blurred reflections of neon and headlights washing over the windshield. Buckhead's skyline shimmered in the rear view. The stoplights blinking red, then green, then red again, marking time like a metronome set to their shared breath. He lived in Ansley Park, a quiet street, old money, lined with mature oaks and houses that looked like they belonged in European magazines, the kind of neighborhood that held its secrets in silence, wrapped in ivy and soft garden lights. His home was set back from the road, modern but warm. Tall glass, black steel, and soft golden lighting that spilled through wide windows like honey. He parked in the private drive, then walked around to open her door again. Elizabeth stepped out slowly, the hem of her dress brushing against the back of her calves. The night was thick with southern heat, but the kind of heat that made everything feel a little more alive. Her skin shimmered faintly, the sheen of summer glistening across her collarbones. She paused there for a second, taking in the quiet elegance of his home, the way the porch light bathed him in soft gold as he waited. He unlocked the front door, letting her step inside first. The interior was exactly what she imagined. Clean, minimal, masculine, yet intimate. Low lighting, deep tones of navy and charcoal, polished concrete floors softened with thick woven rugs. Art lined the walls, mostly black and white photography, abstract pieces with hidden emotion tucked between the lines. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood and something smoky, maybe oud, or perhaps a slow-burning candle tucked somewhere out of view. It was grounding, familiar, a space curated with intention. He offered her a drink, wine again, the same Cabernet from dinner. She accepted and followed him into the open kitchen. She watched him move, deliberate, unhurried. Everything about him was steady. He didn't fill silences unnecessarily. He didn't posture or try to impress her. He simply moved through the world with presence. He poured their glasses and handed hers to her with a nod.
"To what?"
he asked. Elizabeth tilted her head, thoughtful.
"To honesty,"
she said,
"even when it's inconvenient."
His mouth curved into a smile, deep and quiet.
"To honesty,"
he echoed, and they clinked glasses. They moved to the living room, where he lit a few votive candles and turned on a jazz record that sounded like it had been playing for decades. Not new jazz, the kind that moves through your spine, slow, deliberate, aching with something unspoken. The sound of the needle dropping onto the vinyl was intimate in itself. A soft crackle, a breath before the first note. She sat on the edge of his leather sofa, crossing her legs slowly. The the silk of her dress slipping slightly to reveal the soft sheen of her thigh. He didn't stare, but he noticed. And that noticing was more intimate than if he had reached to touch her.
So,
she said, running her finger along the rim of her glass.
does Ava like it here?
He nodded.
She does. Especially the kitchen. We used to cook a lot when she was younger. Pancakes for dinner, Sunday spaghetti.
Elizabeth smiled.
That's beautiful.
She says it still smells like her childhood here. Garlic and lavender.
I like that. A house should smell like memory.
They sat like that for a moment, wine in hand, low jazz in the background, the city humming somewhere beyond the glass. The moment felt suspended, like the space between heartbeats. A quiet invitation hanging in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. Elizabeth leaned back, not seductively, not with intent, just comfortably, like she belonged there. Bradley watched her, her ease, her quiet strength, the way she carried herself like a woman who didn't need attention, only respect. He set his glass down.
Would you like to see the rest of the house?
Her eyes met his.
Only if you're sure.
He didn't answer. He simply rose and extended his hand. She took it. They moved together as though guided by something deeper than intention. Something felt. He guided her through a long corridor, the walls lined with books and old records, a few framed photographs, one of Ava as a little girl in oversized sunglasses, another of Bradley with his arm around an older man who looked like his father. The hallway was quiet, save for the soft brush of their footsteps and the muted jazz drifting down from the living room. It felt like walking deeper into a shared secret. The bedroom was at the end of the hall. It was serene. A palette of warm neutrals, soft lighting, crisp bedding with faint embroidery, and a subtle scent of cedar and something floral. Jasmine, perhaps. Elizabeth stepped inside slowly, her fingers grazing the edge of the nightstand. She didn't sit. She simply stood there for a moment, absorbing the space. Bradley remained at the door watching her.
I wasn't expecting company tonight,
he said quietly. Elizabeth turned slightly, her profile illuminated by the soft glow of the bedside lamp.
Neither was I.
Silence again, but this one wasn't awkward. It was electric.
Can I ask you something?
She said, her voice softer now.
of course.
Why didn't you kiss me outside the restaurant?
He exhaled slowly, then stepped a little closer, but not too close.
Because I didn't want the first kiss to taste like goodbye.
Elizabeth blinked, and for a long moment she didn't speak. When she finally did, her voice was barely above a whisper.
That was the right answer.
She walked toward him, each step deliberate, like a question being asked. She paused when there was just a breath of space between them. Neither of them moved, not yet. The air between them was thick now, not with urgency, but with invitation. Bradley reached up slowly, brushing a stray curl from her cheek. She leaned into his hand, eyes closing for just a second. When she opened them again, He was still watching her, still waiting.
Can I kiss you now?
He asked, voice low and reverent. Elizabeth didn't speak. She leaned in, her lips brushing his. Not a full kiss, just a whisper of one. And then she deepened it. Slow, unhurried, like something sacred. It wasn't about hunger. It was about reverence, about choosing. When they finally parted, she didn't look away, and neither did he. He kissed her forehead once, gently, and she smiled, softly, fully, like someone who had been holding her breath for far too long.
Stay?
He asked. She nodded, and in that quiet nod, something unspoken was promised. Not forever, but for tonight. And that was enough.